Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Learning Guild. In today's session, how learning leaders build cultures that perform. We have a great webinar for you today, and it is sponsored by ELB Learning. And let me just tell you a little bit about our particular speakers for today. We have Jean Eckhoff, and she is the manager of training and organizational development at Conversion Logix and is a dynamic force in learning strategy, enablement, and organizational growth. With over 20 years of experience, Jean transforms training from a check-the-box activity into a strategic driver of performance and engagement. Her superpowers, which are visionary thinking, cross-functional collaboration, and an eye for measurable impact, have helped her build an award-worthy learning ecosystem that shortened onboarding, scaled leadership development, and boosted retention. Whether she's using AI gamification or frameworks rooted in adult learning theory, Jean empowers employees to grow and organizations to thrive. And joining her today is Domenic Caloia, and he has presented innovative learning solutions at many national conferences. He is the Client Success Manager at ELB Learning. He draws from his vast background as an e-learning consultant and senior technical developer at Johnson Controls. As a client success manager for ELB Learning, Domenic provides training, strategic planning, team support, and inspiration for ELB Learning customer. And occasionally, he has fun building custom solutions for the customers. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn things over to Domenic and Jean.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Karen. And to everyone who's joining us today, thank you very much for sharing some of your valuable time with us. The format for today is I will be interviewing Jean. For the past year and a half, I've onboarded Jean into a lot of instructional design tools, and I provided support and training. And she's made such great accomplishments that I thought it would be a great opportunity for her to share what she's done to hopefully inspire you to up your learning experiences. We'll be taking a close look at the learning ecosystem that Jean created, the impact it had on employees, and the performance gains the company experienced. Hi, Jean.
Hey, Dom.
It's nice to be sharing your success story with everyone joining us. Before
Well,
we dive into these topics, okay.
No, go ahead.
Before we dive into these topics, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your background so people know where you're coming from before you joined Conversion Logix.
Before I joined Conversion Logix, okay, I'm not going to go through the whole 20 years, but I actually did start as an ESL teacher, and that's really where I got my passion for teaching and learning. And then fast forward, I ended up connecting with the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer at Conversion Logix. And when I congratulated him on his new job, he said, "What am I doing?" And I said, "Looking for a job." And he said, "In what?" And I said, "Learning and development." And he said, "By the way, we are looking for a learning and development person." So it was a startup company, but had been growing slowly. And the founder of the company had decided that now it's time to go from, being a toddler to growing up and having an employee development, an official employee development program. So we had a chat and talked about what his vision was, and they brought me on as their organizational development manager, which is a fancy title to say I'm the one person for their learning and development programs.
Okay, and can you describe the problem you encountered when you joined the company, and how did you approach solving it?
Yes. Well, they told me they had nobody. They had nothing. And I said, "Okay, do you have any sort of onboarding and training at all?" And they said, "No, I think maybe we have a few PowerPoints. That's it. So when I came on board, I had said, well, one of the things that is very important if you're going to have an employee development program to scale as you get bigger is to have a learning management system. So that was our first problem, is we didn't have a learning management system. So I needed to find one that was going to grow with our company. And then along with that, what I found out is they had no onboarding at all, zero zip zilch. So when I came on board, my onboarding was, here's your laptop and now go do your job. And then the third thing that they didn't have is, though they had a sales team, there was really, because I came from sales enablement at a previous job, there really was no sales training, and especially any sort of way for the salespeople to practice their sales training in a safe environment like video training. So those were the three problems that I started with, and that's where I started.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
know you've been very successful because you shared some metrics with me. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to share my screen and bring
Okay.
up some of those metrics and have you discuss that with us. So the first metrics we have here revolve around learners and
Mm-hmm.
the courses you created. 131 learners, but then you mentioned about 47% being voluntary. What's that about?
Okay, well, first, our company is about 140 people now. So 131, that's taken out some of the executives out of that. So pretty much everybody in our company is using our learning programs. 47% voluntary. One of the things that I started with was how to make learning exciting and something that people want to volunteer for, not just mandatory. You have to take this course, and then everybody rolls their eyes and doesn't want to do it. And that's why I started with onboarding, because I thought if you can make onboarding learning fun, then people say, wow, that left a good taste in my mouth. And what more do you have? So half of the people that are taking learning are taking upskilling courses, things like N8, N8N or Excel or Power BI, or soft skills like communicating with confidence, or learning styles or behavioral styles like DISC, and how do you use that to communicate better. A lot of them take courses on digital marketing to up their skills in digital marketing. We are a digital marketing consulting firm. So those are the types of courses that I created for upskilling and voluntary learning. The one
Wow, that's
thing that
pretty impressive that you had that large of
mm,
a percentage of people that
mhm.
are taking their own time to take training and do professional development. That's really great. Now, I don't know the people that are watching what size companies that they're in or how many courses they create, but from my perspective, 201 courses, and you've been doing this for what, a year and a half or so? That
Mhm.
seems to me like a lot of courses. How did you create so many courses in a short amount of time?
Well, it goes back to the first problem where I needed a learning management system. And because I knew I was only one person, I also needed not just a learning management system, but also a platform that could help me scale as we grew. So one of the things that I looked for in a learning management system, I had a couple of criteria. One is that it had plenty of tools for me to grow into. It wasn't just going to be satisfactory for today, but there were tools that I could grow into. Two, it had an AI component to help me because I knew AI was going to be my friend when it came to creating courses. Three, a video platform for the salespeople to practice and also to catch stories across the organization. Um, so that's what I looked for in the LMS. How did I create? Oh, and the other thing that I looked for was well, that's darn the road, but a catalog of courses that I could use instead of having to create everything myself. So how did I create the 201 courses in a year? Well, ELB has a really great AI micro builder. So instead of taking, a week to build a course, I actually started figuring out how long does it take me to make a course that's engaging, that has games in it, that maybe has a video in it. And for maybe a 30-minute course, it takes me maybe between 2 and 3 hours using AI and all the tools in ELB. So it's a very easy platform to use, very easy to create these courses that are super interactive for our learners.
We'll take a deeper dive into some of those tools that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in a little while. But while we're on this slide, 1,805 enrolled, and there's that voluntary aspect. Just briefly, what's that about? And we'll move on to some more.
Okay, so out of the courses that I have, it's not just one person taking one course. I have a lot of courses across our platform. So a lot of them are product certification courses, and again, a lot of them are mandatory. Some of them are mandatory courses. Like for example, if there was a gap in our operations team where they weren't really being accountable. Or it was hard to build accountability on their team. So I built a whole course on accountability. It ended up being a mandatory course. I assigned it to the operations team. The operations managers had their team members take it and then discussed it and built more accountability on their team using these courses. So they saw a dramatic improvement in how the team talked about ownership, showed ownership when they were working on their tasks and projects.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned that onboarding was a big first project for you, and I've
Mm-hmm.
on the screen now, people are seeing some stats. So briefly, I want to know, looking at these stats, was management happy with the results?
Management was super happy. I don't think management really understood what was happening before I came on, where I actually did a survey of people that didn't have any onboarding. And I actually asked them, when did you feel comfortable in your job? And they were saying, because I had no onboarding, my manager kind of took me through it. It was probably 3 to 6 months before I actually felt like I knew my job. And then once I started my onboarding program and had a survey going, it ended up being after 2 weeks because we built in self-study, we built in job shadowing, we built in a whole lot of different components in our onboarding. Now people are ready to practically a week and a half into their onboarding. They're already doing tasks independently without needing much help. So that was a huge ramp up time difference between having no onboarding and then having a more structured onboarding. And our onboarding really is literally only 2 weeks.
Wow, that sounds fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talked about a lot of different things. So I'm showing now on the screen, I labeled it the synergistic learning ecosystem. And I bet, Jean, you never thought when you started this job that that a year and a half later you'd be considered a learning leader and that you have created this synergistic learning ecosystem. And if you search for a learning ecosystem, you're going to see a lot of images. I made this one up and it highlights and illustrates some key components of, of what Jean has done. And she will go into a little bit of more detail on some of these items, but Jean has already mentioned things like gamification and video. So starting from the left, you can see that Jean had at her fingertips a lot of different tools. And what's
Mm-hmm.
important about that is why have different tools? Why can't you just have one good solid SCORM authoring tool and build your courses? And the answer is specialized tools have better performance in specialized areas. So having a wide tool set lets you excel in a lot of different areas. The delivery component is she talked about delivering gamification and interaction and stuff like that. We haven't even talked about AI yet, but the key to Gene creating so many courses in a short amount of time is the LMS LXP platform that you chose, the ELB Learning Rockstar Learning Platform, has built-in authoring tools in it, some built-in AI authoring tools, and enabled her to not only create content from scratch, use AI to help create content, but she was also able to repurpose things like PDFs and videos that she already had existing and in a matter of minutes turn them into interactive e-learning experiences. And then the metrics that you just saw, the system and the different tools all provided data that she could provide to her stakeholders and her management and say, look at these results. So the learning ecosystem consists of a lot of different elements. And what's not here is that also Jean's understanding of the employees, understanding of the company, that should be factored in also.
That is a very good point. I was talking to my husband about being on this webinar, and he said, you know, one thing that you never talk about that's probably the key to your success is that you start with the other side of the equation. You always think about, what does a learner want? What does a learner want when they're taking a self-study course or any sort of course? They want to learn and they want to be engaged. They don't want to just sit and read. What does the boss want? They want to be able to see, did they learn something and are they applying it on their job? And is what you're doing making a difference? Those are and then the third thing is, what do managers want? Can you talk to managers? Sometimes they don't even know that they have a problem until you start talking to them and having conversations with them, and then find out, wow, they're really struggling with, I don't know, accountability. Or I was just talking to one of our learners the other day, and we have so many people from different countries. All of a sudden I realized, my goodness, a lot of our misunderstandings are coming from not understanding different cultures and how different cultures communicate. So just by talking to people and finding out what is it that they want can help you build a really great learning culture, and a culture that people want to, that's going to actually transform your people and make a difference.
Thank you very much for that, those insights. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to what you just said. And on this slide here, I just want to quickly recap some points about the learning ecosystem. First off, when I say define the learning components, if you have a learning objective for a salesperson or or you're doing leadership training for managers, the situation may be kind of complex. But if you break down the requirements of what's required on a performance level for the employee, it could be listening skills, speaking skills, demonstration skills, critical thinking skills, and to train, or I should say, develop each aspect of the skills, which is a little bit different, can be kind of difficult just with a SCORM authoring tool. And that's where having a different tool set comes in handy. So breaking down the task into its element components, understanding which tools are available and what they specialize in, matching the tool to each element of that of your learning goal leads you to building a complex tool set. Now, are there any questions, Karen, that you see in the chat or the question poll?
Yes, we have a couple of questions. What LMS are you using, Jean?
I'm using the ELB Learning platform. So I used the Rockstar Learning platform for the LMS, and I use different other tools from their platform, like the rehearsal. I use the microbuilder. I use an asset library, and I use training arcades and arcades. So training arcade is for the gamification.
Okay. Another question came in. Who vets the validity of the content, and what percentage of the content is customized to your learners? And I'll let you answer that first question, and then there are a few others.
Okay, who vets the content? It depends on what it is. So for example, I've done a lot of overviews of the departments. So for a new hire to understand, what does our accounting department do? What does our marketing department do? I have a list of 5 questions, like, what are the top tasks you do and don't do? What are the value that you bring to the client and to the teams around you? I have the managers or team members fill that out. They usually just give me a Word document, which I guess would be fine for a new hire just to read it, but how boring is that? So I turn it into a fun lesson with a game. I have the manager vet that and make sure that that's okay. So whatever I'm taking content from the company, I always have it vetted by either the SME or the manager or somebody that is helping me build that content. What was the second question? It
The
was really
second
good.
the second is how much of the content is customized to the learners?
As in learner's age or learner like skill level, I guess.
I would imagine, I don't know. We'll ask Paula to chime in there, but she did have some additional questions. What
Okay, well,
pers
okay, here's an example. We have two individual contributors who are just starting out well, they've been in my Emerging Leaders program. They wanted to step up and get more responsibility. So we had two new hires coming on board. So they wanted to be the ones in charge of or responsible for training the two new hires. Well, we do a lot of job shadowing and nobody ever told them how to be a mentor to a new hire. And because we are a remote environment, it doesn't make sense just to get on a Zoom call and start moving your mouse around and expect somebody to learn that way. So I thought about, okay, this is their need. They've never been a mentor to a new hire. What three things do they need to know to make it a good experience for the new hire and a good experience for them? Give them a framework to follow. So
Okay.
so I put together a lesson for them, sent it to them, and they said, "Oh my gosh, I never would have thought of doing it this way. Never would have thought of um, asking, stop asking, do you have any questions? And refer it to this way." And they said it has helped them so much. So I guess I do personalize it depending on the situation and depending on the learner.
Okay. All right. So Paula responded and said, thanks for that. Are the courses accessible and let's see, and are they localized? So can you use French or Canadian, French Canadian or Spanish? And who reviews the languages?
I use one of my other tools that I use is something called Open Sesame. It's a curated catalog of courses because I thought, well, I can't create every single course in the world, and that's kind of silly because that would be like reinventing the wheel. So a lot of not a lot, I would say half and half of the courses are based from Open Sesame. So I will pull in an Open Sesame course. Those are all in different languages. So those are immediately translated. We don't need necessarily translation for the courses that I build based on our company because English is our main language.
Okay.
I would add that in the Rockstar Learning platform, the
Yes.
authoring tool, the microbuilder authoring tool allows for AI translation. So the learner can select their language on the page that you authored, and it'll translate the text, it'll translate the audio inside the video, it'll put in closed captions in the video. Pretty cool tool.
Yes, those are pretty cool.
All
So
right. So
now let's move on to the gamified learning paths. And Jean, you mentioned to me, and I think you might have mentioned it briefly earlier today, that you place a lot of emphasis on games and making learning fun. Can you explain and
Explain
elaborate on
that.
that?
Okay. I'm the worst learner ever. So if learning is boring to me, then I'm not going to learn anything. Um, I, you read anything out there for the younger generation who is coming into work, and honestly, even me, I love playing little games on my phone and going to a next level. So I figured if I like it, if most people are talking about gamification and leveling up, that's what I need to put in my learning. So one of the things that I started with is, again, in onboarding, the easiest thing that I did is they have to learn our values of our company. Well, they can read a PDF and say, okay, there they are. But that, like, how do you know that they really got it or that learning sticks? And in the ELB platform, there's a really cool feature where you can make games super fast. So most of my lessons have some sort of gamification in there where they can play a game and just see, can they beat their own score? I am just now getting into the arcades where I'm using a gamified learning path to build out this whole cross-cultural communication and this is what I'm working on now. So I'm going to pilot it with one of the team members that said, I really want to do this. So I'm excited to do this gamified learning path where they can do different activities, get experience points, and then they can, at the end, they're going to compete with each other in a game to see who gets the better score.
Jean, that sounds fantastic, but where do you find the time? You're only one person.
I know. That's where the AI comes in. A lot of the games you can pull up, hey, I want to make a new game. It has an AI tool that you can upload your content. Like I'll either upload a PDF or just copy and paste, and it'll automatically make questions based on your content. And not only the questions, but it gives you the right answer and 3 or 4 wrong answers, depending on what you want. And you plug and play those into the game. The last game that I did was a trivia game. I had 12 questions based on some document that a manager gave me, a Word document. I think from start to finish, and that included setting up the game and playing it to make sure it worked, and inputting, pictures and things. I think it took me 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Whoa, that's amazing.
Yes. And
All
that's
right, so
why,
let's
yeah.
let's recap here some of the points here with the gamification. Obviously, it's very engaging and motivating, but these games, they're educational games. I remember when I first heard about gamification, I'm the serious analytical type, and I'm thinking, no way, no way, no way. But I very quickly got addicted, and I learned that these games you're talking about are educational games, and
Mm-hmm.
the content is based on your learning content.
Mm-hmm.
It increases social engagement. You can publish to SCORM. You could use it in ILT situations, virtual live situations, and you could use it on a multiplayer or team or solo aspect.
One of the games that I used we have an intern program that we have interns come in the summer. And so I have them for a week in an in-person environment. And then at the end of the week, we play a Jeopardy game. And it's super easy. You just use your content, create the questions, and then we play a Jeopardy game, and it reinforces their learning and they have fun.
Any questions on the gamification area?
Yes, there are. Let me,
Mhm.
so some of them have to do with gamification.
Okay.
So let's see here. A new technology rapidly emerges and processes evolve. How do you maintain the courses for relevancy?
Well, I was just thinking about processes evolving. Processes evolve all the time in our company. So I'm very careful about not doing something that I know is going to change in the next half hour or the next week. So most of my learning is going to be, I don't want to say static learning, but something that is not going to change that much in a short amount of time. That being said, some of my overviews of the teams have changed within the past year. It's easy enough to go in and make edits and republish it, and I don't have to redo the whole thing again. You just go in and edit the little parts that change. Does that
All right.
answer the question?
I will let
I
the
hope
person
so.
who, yeah, I'll let the person who asked it respond, and hopefully that is the answer they're looking for. But
Okay.
going into games, there was another question here. How do you work with business to connect those game outcomes to business outcomes? Are you able to help make the learners make those connections?
It depends on the questions that you're asking. I mean, it's all about the questions and it's all about what do you want them to get out of it? Is it something like I created a lesson on what is a better way to create a digital ad? You give them good and bad examples, and then the game is can you pick out a good example versus a bad example? Or in the game, it's what in this ad is correct or what is not correct. So then you just match it to are there less errors from these people after taking this lesson?
Okay. There are a couple other questions not related to gamification, but a little more having to do with strategy and linking things and platform and documents. So we may be covering those a little later.
Yeah,
So if you,
I'm trying to allow time at the end for some
yes.
Q&A, and that would
Mm-hmm.
be a good time at the
Yep.
end.
Yep. Exactly.
So next we have video practice. Now, Jean, video practice may not be familiar to a lot of people. So what's so important about this? Is this something that is just icing on the cake and if you got the budget, I'll play around with it? Or is this something that, I really would miss this if I didn't have it. It really fills the gap. Answer that question for us.
It's the second, and in fact, it was one of the top requirements I needed when I was looking for a learning management system. Because we have salespeople, and I came from the sales enablement background, and sales enablement or salespeople, we love them. They're lovely people. They're just a horse of a different color, and they hate training. They hate taking time away from the phones, but they still need to get the words out when a new product comes out, when a new value statement comes out, when something new comes out, and they have to be able to talk about it with the client. So video practice to me is super important in that it is a safe place for people to practice either a sales pitch, to practice a difficult conversation if you're using it for managers. It's a great tool to use to show a qualitative, not quantitative, but a qualitative learning moment from a program. So, for example, I'm running an emerging leaders and an upskilling leaders program. Every month they do self-studies, and then they have to tell a business story using our video practice platform. And what's amazing is some of these stories you hear. One of my favorites is one of these managers who's been a manager for a long time, did a lesson, and her story was about how she is such a fixer. And she couldn't figure out why her team was not very confident on client calls and not super innovative with solutions. Well, she realized after taking this lesson and sharing this story that she would just constantly jump in and fix things for her team. So she stopped doing that, started asking more questions why, and all of her team members, their confidence level on customer calls grew. They came up with solutions that she never would have come up with. I shared that story with the executives, and it was a concrete example of how these programs that I'm putting together and these self-study learnings and putting people through these programs is actually transforming how they're leading.
So this is a very important part of your program. Thank you for explaining that. So to sum this up, safe practice is very important because when practice is safe, then employees can take more risks and take more chances. Sometimes learning from failure is very important. Feedback can come from AI, from peers, from subject matter experts inside your company. Role play can be multi-person, live, or scripted with AI. And it reduces training times and costs, and it is scalable. So a little note on the bottom, we found from the rehearsal video coaching tool that ELB Learning has that uses practice an average of 5 to 6 times. And if you've ever struggled with getting employees to practice before they come to class, or they come to training, you know how difficult that is with time pressures at work and life happens, who has time to practice? But using this platform, people say, whoa, before I submit this video, let me try that again. I think I want to do a little bit better. So
And
that's a quick recap on this.
I wanted to add something. You did say feedback from AI peers and managers. Our managers are loving this for their sales team because they can, at the end of the day, really stop and listen to what their salespeople and their account managers are saying instead of having to do it quickly in a training and you only get 3 people to practice. Here, they can actually listen to every single person practicing. They have concentration, they're focused, and it has really helped a lot in our product certification where now they're getting more and more consistent messaging across the board.
That's an excellent point. Karen, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple of additional questions.
Mhm.
And can you talk a little more about the strategy and obstacles transforming the culture, role of linking to performance metrics, drawing learners to the content, and socializing a culture of learning as a performance driver?
To me,
I
it
remember
was
talking to Jean about how to launch this in the company. Do you remember how your very, very first video exercise and how you introduced this to the employees?
you want me to talk about that?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, Anything new is scary. So you just make it fun and you make it easy. Our very first practice that we have people do is they have to recommend a restaurant. So they go into the lesson, they see my shining face, and I say, "Hey, you were out walking and you ran into a neighbor, and this neighbor said, 'Oh, we just moved into the area. Can you recommend a restaurant? I have family coming in and they have 3 kids and one person is vegan.'" And so that was their prompt, and all they had to do was recommend a restaurant. It was a very safe and easy thing for them to practice using the platform. And after that, they really didn't have any trouble at all using it, or they still don't like to see themselves, but it's a lot easier for them to practice doing it this way than it is called on in a training session. And it saves time too, because then they can do it when they want to, and they don't have to take time out during the day. Did
And
I answer the question?
as far as tying it into performance, the platform enables for chunking into micro learning. It provides a lot of different ways that employees can interact. It provides the ability for there to be peer-to-peer reviews. So
Mm-hmm.
if you take a complex topic and chunk it, put the employees in a safe place to practice, give them AI feedback, then give them the ability to have feedback from their peers. By the time a manager needs to review a video, there's been a lot of training, a lot of learning, a lot of practice taking place. It saves a tremendous amount of time. And then all this practice is done in a safe zone, meaning you're not losing out on any sales, you're not losing any market share because of mistakes being made in the real world. And then you have a digital documentation of the entire learning journey that each learner went through. So it's very robust, and you could tie it into employee performance afterwards.
Mm-hmm. In the rehearsal practices, you do have requirements. So the person who's doing the pitch or doing the story can see what are they being graded on. And so that's another, you said, how do you tie it to performance? You, that's how you tie it to performance as well. You list those requirements as part of that.
Okay, good question. Now on to a different tool for VR creation. And after all these months, Gene, I heard you say to me recently that you haven't tried this yet. Why not?
Um, I
Be honest here.
I've been so busy trying to do everything else and realized, oh my gosh, I was just talking to my colleague today and I said, do you realize how many programs I'm actually managing as a person of one? Right now, I haven't explored this simply because it hasn't been on my radar. I think it is something that's going to be coming for our company. I can see how VR would help with maybe building out better digital ads or better. You could use it for a myriad of reasons. It's just I just haven't explored it yet because I haven't had time.
Well, thank you for your honesty, Gene. And a lot of people, myself included in the beginning, it's I don't have any need for this tool. If I'm not training people on how to operate a nuclear plant, that if they press the
No.
wrong button, we're all obliterated. I'm not training someone in a hospital room where a patient may die if I do something in the wrong sequence. Like those are really, really valid reasons for using a virtual 3R learning experience. But did you know that this can be used for a exploratory learning? Which means now you're giving the learner the experience. Do I go to the left? Do I go to the right? Do I click on a video? Do I click on a document? Do I click on this interaction? So giving the learner the choice to go left, right, up, and down and click on different things. Did you know that it's a great tool for creating logical thinking, observation, memory? You could put a timer where people have to, let's say you have them locked up in a escape room. You got a timer on it, and now they need to cultivate rapid thinking, okay, analytical skills. So even without this being a way of saving money on training on expensive equipment, or it's not a way of reducing the risk in a highly volatile, risky physical situation. There are a lot of other uses for this tool.
And I can see that being used. I'm the one that's super curious about new tools. Because I had so many tools with the ELB learning platform, I've slowly rolled them out one after another. I didn't just throw everything at everybody. So once they get used to one tool, then I'll roll out another one. I could see us using VR, especially that I truly believe in more exploratory learning than, hey, sit down and read these 15 PowerPoints and then answer a question. Like to
And
me,
thank you for that reaction, Jean. And I'm hoping a lot of attendees are having the same kind of reaction. Are there any questions relating to 360-degree virtual training?
I am not seeing any questions in regards to that right now. So if you have them, make sure you drop them in the Q&A so we can address them.
Not a problem, because this is now we're on the cutting edge of these tools, and a lot of people may not see a need for it yet, but that's quite okay. So everything we've been talking about so far, this is a glimpse of Gene's dashboard. And you can see in the first large image the different tools that Gene has been discussing. Now, a lot of these are a la carte. So there is a bundle where the Lectora score authoring tool and the review link for the online review tool, the asset library, and the AI toolkit. And that's the little bottom picture here that I've got exploded. The AI toolkit is 8 different AI apps. All that is one bundle, but adding the video and the gamification, those things are all optional. And the micro builder, that's a tool similar to Rise, where it's one vertical page and you can have that translated into multiple languages. The avatar builder is built right into it. AI is built right into it. So you can very quickly, in a matter of minutes, have a visual experience course laid out, micro learning, one page. And we're making some advancements on that where it could link to other pages. But this is a quick overview of Gene's dashboard. And what's good about this is all the tools that you decide based upon, and here's where the strategy comes in, based upon what your objectives are, not only for a particular course, but for the organization. And lots of times as a matter of fact, I was on a call with one of our salespeople, and it stunned me because he's talking to the client and he recommended what tool to use. And then after that, he's asking, well, what kind of training are you doing? And I'm like, well, that question should have been asked first before you recommend a tool. And then the other point is what people forget to consider is not only what do you want to do today, but where do you want your learning team to be a year, 3 years, and 5 years down the road? And I'll give you a perfect example. All right. If you tell me that you have a learning team that's really inexperienced in this stuff, they're just beginning, the natural tendency is to say, well, this tool is really simple. But if you take a really simple tool, your team will always be doing really simple development work.
and that is
However,
such,
if you have good training, well, it's obvious if you're kind of experienced, but when you're first considering these questions, look, my salesperson was recommending a simple tool, and it's like, wait a minute, I've trained people on a more complex tool, and in 1 month, they're doing fantastic. Don't underestimate the ability of people, to learn things. So don't always gravitate to the lowest common denominator.
I
So
think that's a,
basically, in strategic planning, think about not only where am I starting from, but where do I want to be? And that applies to selecting your tool set here. And Jean, fortunately, selected a very robust tool set, and look how she's grown. She's getting amazing results.
Can I pop in here, Dom?
Jump right in.
Okay. Yes. Poor Dom, because right after I purchased the ELB suite, because I knew we needed to scale. I mean, our company was growing, and I knew as the workforce changes, we did need more tools and different tools to keep people engaged and to scale. But I remember the first day after I purchased it, and I woke up and I was just like, paralyzed. I thought, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. I think the second thing that you need to think about when you're purchasing a tool is what kind of customer service are you going to get? Are you purchasing something from a partner or just from a vendor? I think I could not have been this successful if Dom had not been such a great customer service. And Dom did not pay me to say this, but such a great customer service and helper. So he did help me learn how to use these tools and what are the best practices. And there were times when I said, "Oh, I want to do this, this, and this," and he said, "Well, I think you're overcomplicating it. You know, let's use this tool." Or you're not using the tools to its best advantage. Have you thought about doing this and this and this? So that helped a lot too.
Thank you very much for that, Jean. I'm not going to read the slide. I hate when people read slides, but
Yes.
everyone has had time to read the slide. So we're coming towards the end of the slides and the prepared. So we're going to be opening up shortly to Q&A, any type of Q&A. But from a performance architect, and I'm sure that Jean didn't consider herself a learning architect or a learning leader when she started, but all the stuff we're talking about, you shared an interesting exercise that you did using AI when it comes to, the cost. Is all this stuff expensive? Tell us about that exercise you shared with me earlier today.
The one when I was talking about, the one that I shared first thing this morning. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so John and I were talking actually a while back, and he said, "Did you have a blank check to build your learning tool set?" And I said, "No, my company is very, very, very cost conscious." So that's one of the reasons why I looked for a tool that we could grow into. And B, I looked for a tool that instead of me having to build everything, I could use to build courses that I didn't have to build. And I ended up talking, I don't know how much you wanted me to go into the numbers, Dom,
No,
about.
it's just the bottom line, how much you save, but tell us how you derived that calculation. I think
Oh,
people find that interesting.
yeah. I based it on how much does it cost me to make a 30-minute course? If I was using AI and still like did the course, had the content, but built the course in a micro builder, put in pictures, kind of, prettied it up, edited it, and things like that. And I figured it took me it's a solid 2 hours. Probably it's more like three, but a solid 2 hours. And then how much it would cost and then how much money I saved by using a catalog to pull in courses that I didn't have to make. Um, because I chose a different catalog, I saved my company 15,000 a year by switching the different catalogs that we were using. And then the other thing is by using a catalog and by using AI, I've saved the company about 50,000 a year.
Okay, if I could stop you right there.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very important concept. I've done a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sales training, and when the question comes up, how much does it cost? And if I feel that the client doesn't really appreciate the value that I'm offering, and you ask me that question, I respond with, how does free sound? And it's like, come on, you can't be free. But now the question of, look, it sounds kind of interesting. And that's probably what a lot of people listening to me right now is saying, well, Tom, a lot of this sounds kind of interesting, but it sounds very expensive. What does it cost? Okay. When I say how does free sound, here's the goal. If this is architected properly, the return on investment is going to be greater than the invoice payment that you're making. Meaning, if I have a tool that's going to save me enough man hours, if I have a tool that's going to shorten the training time, if I have a tool that's going to stop my people from making mistakes live in the market where I'm losing market share and I'm losing money and I'm losing customers, the ROI gain to the business is going to be so much greater than what it cost me for the tools. That's the sweet spot. And ELB Learning wants to partner with you and work with you so you get to that sweet spot. Selling you once and then having you say this is too expensive and not renewing doesn't do either one of us any good. But if we could give you trials, if we could provide the consulting to you and the strategy planning where we say, we see your needs today, we see where you want to go tomorrow, we see the industry that you're in, let's try this. Maybe we try it on a small scale and not roll it out to the whole department, but let's prove a positive ROI. Because once you could get the golden egg, buy the goose that lays the golden egg, and you're getting at over $3,000 an ounce, you're getting a golden egg every single day. Whoa! Now we're talking about returns that way outweigh the cost of that golden goose. So I'm going to get off my soapbox. And any questions now?
That was a really good explanation, Don. And you can make the math as easy or as complicated as you want. But if you just take a general, just throw it out there and say, I make $50 an hour. And by using PowerPoint and Word documents, it takes me a week to make a lesson versus it takes me 3 hours with with an AI builder. You can do the math and figure out it's definitely worth the value of getting a tool that's going to help you, especially if you're a team of one or two. I don't have time to spend 40 hours a week building one lesson. I just don't have that time.
Mm. Karen, any other questions that we have not covered or that are coming in?
Yes, we actually have one back when we were talking about VR, and a question came up, how do you measure the behaviors with the VR tool?
Uh, there's two ways of delivering the VR. One of them is I just want to produce it and I'll publish it out on my LMS system. And doing it that way, the metrics are going to be very limited. If you have it hosted by ELB Learning, then you have the whole back end that is based on X API. It'll collect detailed metrics as to what they clicked on, how much time they spent in the course, and things like that. So you can get some deep analytics of the learner behavior.
All right, great. I hope that answers their question.
Mm.
Another question, we've been talking about sales training, but someone asked, what other industries can you share about how this is being used? And not just sales training, but other kinds of industries.
Oof. If you go to the ELB Learning website, you see all sorts of industries covered there. Uh, Onboarding would be in any industry, and Jean is a perfect example of that. Leadership training is very popular. We have a lot of customers in the either financial industry or in the healthcare industry. Tremendous number of customers in the government industry, and that's probably because we have a offline tool which can operate behind firewalls and without any internet access for any type of company that's in a highly secure operation. So, talking with one of our reps. Oh, on the website also, there's tons of case studies. So you could probably find a case study, hopefully find a case study in the particular industry that you're interested in for more information. And you can see the contact information there, website and demos, free trials are available. Strategic planning, if you just want to come back to this point that we're doing right now and talk in depth with one of our StratX experts. And my contact information is there also. And, customer support, client, even if you're not a customer, I love talking about these things. So if you want to just chat for a half hour and do some brainstorming, you got my email address. Let's connect.
All right, very good. Let's see, what other things do we have here? Um, All right. So there was a conversation with Jennifer from ELB in the chat from a particular person who was asking about are these tools easier to use than Articulate and Rise to build online training? And Jennifer responded, well, that's a great question. And maybe Jean has a little experience with Articulate Rise and can talk about MicroBuilder as opposed to Rise.
Actually, yes, I have used Rise. I've used Captivate. I think it's way easier. The tools are right there. It's a lot simpler. Yes, to me, it's a lot simpler and it's a lot easier to use. That's a short answer.
Okay, well, that I think answers that question. I am not seeing any other questions that we haven't answered. So if you do, please post them in the Q&A.
Yeah, and I'm on LinkedIn if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my name on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Jean Eckhoff out there.
Mhm.
All right.
So
Well,
thank you for the opportunity to talk about my experience, Dom and Karen.
I see we did really good time-wise. We're coming up to the end of the hour. I want to thank everyone for their questions, their participation, and their time.
Yes, thank
yes.
you very much.
Thank you all for participating in this session today, and thank you for your great questions. We did appreciate you sharing those with us. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to share some other things. So as you can see, this was sponsored by ELB, How Learning Leaders Build Cultures That Performed. And we got a little bit of a fireside chat from Jean and Domenic taking us through that. So we do appreciate that. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Domenic. Thank you for sharing your experience and telling us all about how you were managing to create those great courses in what seems to be record time. So thanks so much for that. Thanks, everybody. And I am going to go ahead and end this webinar, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.